Somewhere inside your skull, right now, there is a cleaning system that only turns on when you are unconscious. It flushes toxins out of your brain that build up while you're awake. Scientists only discovered it existed in 2012. And the way it works may explain why so many of us feel like we never fully rest, no matter how many hours we sleep. This is not the only thing your body does at night that modern life has quietly erased. There is an entire hidden architecture to human sleep, and most of us have never experienced a single night of it. Let's start with the cleaning system, because it is stranger than anything in a science fiction film. In 2012, a neuroscientist named Nedergaard was studying mouse brains when she noticed something nobody had documented before. During sleep, the spaces between brain cells expand, not by a little, by roughly 60%. Into that expanded space, fluid rushes through the brain in rhythmic waves, washing through tissue like a tide moving through a beach at low water. This fluid carries away metabolic waste, including a protein called beta amyloid, the same protein that clumps together in the brains of people with Alzheimer's disease. Nedergaard named this system the lymphatic system, a nod to the brain's glial cells and the body's lymphatic system, which performs a similar cleaning job everywhere else. Here is the part that should concern you. This system is dramatically less active while you are awake. It needs sleep, specifically deep sleep, to fully switch on. Miss enough of it, and the waste simply accumulates. Night after night, year after year. A 2018 study using PET scans found that after just one night of total sleep deprivation, beta amyloid levels in the brain increased measurably. One night. That is how fast the buildup begins. Your brain has been quietly running a nightly maintenance shift for your entire life, and until 2012, nobody on Earth knew it existed. But the lymphatic system is not the strangest thing your body used to do at night. There is something else. Something we did for hundreds of thousands of years and then completely forgot, so thoroughly that historians started mistranslating the evidence. In 1990, a historian named Roger Eckhart was reading a 17th century English legal document when he noticed a strange phrase. A witness described going back to sleep after his first sleep. Eckhart assumed it was a typo or an odd turn of phrase. Then he found the same phrase again and again, in French court records, in Italian short stories, in medical texts, in diaries written by ordinary people with no reason to lie or exaggerate. He spent the next 16 years hunting through archives. By the time he published his findings in 2001, he had gathered over 500 references to first sleep and second sleep, spanning from the 14th century all the way into the industrial era. The pattern they described was consistent and specific. People went to bed shortly after sunset. They slept for about 4 hours. Then they woke. Not from a nightmare, not from noise. They simply woke fully and calmly in the middle of the night, and they stayed awake in the dark for 1 to 2 hours before falling back asleep for a second 4-hour block until dawn. This was not insomnia. This was Tuesday. During that waking window, historical records describe an entire quiet culture. People prayed. They interpreted dreams while the details were still fresh. Married couples visited each other in the dark. A French physician in the 1500s specifically recommended this hour for conception, believing couples performed better after the first sleep than before it. Others simply lay in the dark and thought, turning problems over in their minds with nobody around to interrupt. For centuries, historians had actually been reading these references. They had simply been mistranslating them because they could not imagine humans sleeping any other way than the single unbroken block we consider normal today. Then, in 1992, a psychiatrist named Thomas Ware decided to test whether this pattern was real or just a historical curiosity. He took a group of volunteers and removed all artificial light from their evenings for 1 month, 14 hours of darkness a night, roughly matching how long the night lasted before electric light existed. Within weeks, every single participant, without being told anything about Eckhart's research, settled into the exact same rhythm. 4 hours of sleep, 1 to 3 hours of quiet wakefulness. Then 4 more hours of sleep. Nobody suggested this pattern to them. It simply emerged, as if a program buried under centuries of artificial light had been waiting the entire time to switch back on. Ware took blood samples during the waking window and found something remarkable. Participants showed elevated levels of prolactin, a hormone associated with feelings of calm and contentment, the same hormone that spikes during meditation and immediately after childbirth. The participants described the state in strikingly similar language: peaceful, clear-headed, quietly satisfied. Several said it felt like the most rested they had felt in years, despite being awake in the middle of the night. This was not a broken version of sleep. It was a distinct third state of consciousness, sitting between waking and sleeping, that the modern world has almost entirely eliminated. So what killed it? Light. Simply, overwhelmingly light. In the late 1600s, Paris installed the first large-scale public street lighting in Europe, under a king who wanted to reduce nighttime crime. London followed shortly after. For the first time in human history, night stopped being something you hid from. Cheaper candles arrived next. Then gas lighting spread through cities in the 1800s. Then, in 1879, a commercially viable electric light bulb reached the public. Within a single generation, a pattern that had structured human nights for over 300,000 years simply disappeared. Nobody voted on it. Nobody studied the consequences first. The night got brighter, and the two-phase sleep pattern quietly went extinct. Here is a detail almost nobody knows. The word curfew comes from the French couvre-feu, which literally means cover the fire. In medieval towns, a bell rang each evening signaling everyone to smother their household flames. This had nothing to do with safety from fire. It was a signal that night belonged to darkness, and daylight activity had officially ended. We spent centuries building rules around the idea that night was supposed to be dark. Then, within a few decades, we simply lit it up and never looked back. This matters more than it sounds like it should, because modern sleep is not just shorter than it used to be. It is structurally different. The average person today is exposed to artificial light for 6 to 8 hours after sunset, much of it from screens emitting blue light directly into the retina. Your eyes cannot distinguish between a phone screen and the sun. When that light hits your retina at 11 at night, your brain interprets it as daytime and delays the release of melatonin, the hormone that governs your sleep cycle. Researchers have found that people who spend just 1 week camping with zero artificial light experience a melatonin shift of nearly 2 hours, with their bodies beginning to produce the hormone naturally at sunset, instead of hours later. 1 week. That is all it takes for 300,000 years of programming to start reasserting itself. We did not just shorten our sleep, we deleted an entire phase of human consciousness, the same phase that Vere's subjects described as the calmest, clearest hour of their day. Instead, when modern humans wake at 2 in the morning, we call it insomnia. We treat it as a malfunction. We reach for our phones, flooding our eyes with exactly the wrong kind of light, and wonder why we cannot fall back asleep. But what if waking at 2 a.m. isn't a malfunction at all? What if it is your body attempting to run a program that used to be normal, in a world that no longer gives it the darkness required to finish? Every single night, your brain is still trying to do two things it was built to do over hundreds of thousands of years. It is trying to flush toxins through a cleaning system discovered only 12 years ago. And it is trying to find a quiet, dark window in the middle of the night that the modern world has almost entirely erased. Neither of these processes cares that you have a job in the morning. Neither of them checks your calendar. For 300,000 years, your ancestors ended each night the same way. They lay in genuine darkness, woke calmly in the middle of it, and spent an hour thinking, praying, or simply existing before the second half of the night arrived. We traded that entire ritual for a light switch, and most of us never even noticed it was gone. The next time you wake at 2 in the morning and stare at the ceiling, you are not broken. You are remembering something your body was never allowed to forget.